of the night, I search for freedom on the move. Screen aglow, I tread their numbers.
All right. Hi, everybody. David Fogel back with you, CEO of the Symphonina Foundation, back with another Symphonina Foundation podcast. And I'm joined today by two-time Grammy nominee Shawn Okpebholo, who's up for Best Contemporary Classical Composition this year with his Songs in Flight. Shawn, congratulations.
Thank you. I'm so excited, and I'm also very excited to be here talking with you, David.
Well, we greatly appreciate it. You've had a long career and maybe not a long period of time, but maybe it feels long to you. I don't know. We haven't known each other long enough for me to know whether it feels like it's been long for you. But before we get to your album, we will get to your album. I want to ask you something about how you got started in music, because you have a very unique experience, and I'd love for you to rather than me tell it, maybe you can share it with our listeners.
Yeah, thank you. I'll do the Cliff Notes version of it. But basically, I was raised by a single mom. She had, three kids, and, we lived in government housing, the whole nine yards. And so we couldn't afford anything like, music lessons. But the Salvation Army church bus came to our neighborhood for the kids to have some sort of like Boy Scout and Girl Scout type program.
Yeah.
And so we did that for a little bit, and then we started going to the Salvation Army church. Which, in America, people just know Salvation Army because of the bell ringing and, things like that. But it's a church. And the unique thing about the Salvation Army church, out of all the ecumenical bodies, it probably has the strongest or the most in-depth music programs. So we started going to the church at a very young age, maybe around 6 or 7 years old. And so I started getting free music lessons through the Salvation Army by these world-class musicians. So I'm not trying to romanticize this, but my music education was through the Salvation Army, free lessons.
Incredible, right? So what did you start on, piano, or what did you start on?
So I started on the baritone horn. The Salvation Army, they specialize in brass bands, brass music, and also choral. And so I played the baritone horn and tuba. But quickly, I learned at a very young age that I much rather create than actually perform. And so I was writing little tunes, age 8 or 9 or 10 and 11. And James Curnow, who is a world-renowned composer back then, and he's still active today in his 80s, went to my church. And so around age 13 or 14, he started giving me free composition lessons. Because
that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and so I started composition with this world-class composer, and he didn't have to do this, he didn't, but he saw something in me, and he gave us time anytime he was in town, and taught me composition, and I'm just so grateful. My life has literally changed because of that.
Yeah, and you went all the way to getting a doctorate in composition, I think, from University of Cincinnati. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you never gave it up then. Once you got into it, you just kept. So what is your favorite forms? What are your favorite forms to compose in?
That is a really good question. I'm going to answer it like this. I like to do it all, but a significant part of my compositional output is art song. I think by accident in many ways, because like I said, I was a brass player, but I started engaging the Negro spiritual, and so I would reimagine these in a way, like art songs, setting poetry to music. And that transition to just really falling in love with all different types of poetry, and then doing the same with other poems, and to create these song cycles in art song. But listen, I love a good chamber ensemble where you can get 4 or 5 players together and just go crazy being virtuosic. Or I love, writing big orchestral works. I have an opera out there that's doing pretty well. And so I really like it all. But I will say the core is engaging other art forms and collaborating. That is my thing.
Before we go on to your album, let me ask a little bit about collaborating and diversification too. So, you mentioned a few things that are in the classical realm. What about the jazz realm? Did you get a lot of education in that as well?
No, I am not a jazz composer at all. I love it, and so you may hear jazz influences or gospel influences in my music. In fact, it's all over. But it's me approaching jazz and gospel, just like I think in me as a Black American, but through a classical lens. And I think it's why I think my music can kind of resonate with different audiences because I come from a very classical perspective, but appreciate other art forms, and so I bring it through this perspective.
Yep.
That's not, I think why I'm maybe unique in a way.
Yeah, when I was listening this morning, I wouldn't say it was jazzy in any way. In any way,
No, no, no,
that
no, no.
wasn't the point. But I did feel like I didn't. I heard some, let's say, non-traditional things that would go
Yep.
outside of what you might expect in a traditional classical realm, and so that's why I was asking that question.
Yeah. And I should say, in the 21st century, if you want classical music to become more diverse, more inclusive, you need to expand what the meaning of classical music is. It's very simple. Then, expand what it is, because it's not just what people think it is. I mean, we're in the 21st century, which means it can mean a lot of different things.
Yep. 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 Okay, let's talk about Songs in Flight. Let's go back to your inspiration, how you got going with, again, it's Records of Enslaved People Escaping Slavery. You have many collaborators on the album. What was the genesis for you starting this project, and how did you find everybody to work with?
Yeah, so Martha Guth, who one of the artistic directors of Sparks and Wiry Cries, which is a art song organization, she calls me up one day out of the
Uh-huh.
blue. She says, Shawn, I love this. I love your Two Black Churches, which is another art song I said I did. She says, I just came across this database called Freedom on the Move, which is about 30,000 advertisements for the recapture of enslaved people.
Wow.
Okay, so runaway slaves, these advertisements. And she says, we have to do something about it. And she says, and she had this big plan. I want to get Rhiannon Giddens, who is a rock star, and Will Liverman, Karen Slack, Reginald Mobley, Howard Watkins, who's the pianist at the Met, one of the conductors at the Met, and I want to premiere it here. I mean, I don't even think she had funding yet, but she had this vision,
Yeah.
and it's funny because I said I need time to think about this, even though this was an amazing opportunity. I had just finished a piece that dealt with Black pain, or series of pieces.
Mm.
And I didn't know if I wanted to delve into that because when I compose music, it takes all of me.
Yeah.
But I went back and and I just Googled, Freedom on the Move and read some of these advertisements. And what these advertisements did was, I don't like to say it reclaimed the humanity of Black people because I don't, that implies that it was taken away,
Mm.
but it reaffirmed it. So you have these advertisements that were meant to recapture enslaved people. But what it did was it gave us insight of what they look like, what they like to do, what they wore, where they're from, who their parents. And, this kid was a mama's boy. He was fair skinned. He wore a yellow shirt. Because oftentimes when we think of things like the Holocaust or slavery, we think of them in the abstract. But these are individual people,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so that's what these ads did. So we were able to create this narrative based on some of these ads and humanize, these enslaved people in a way that was beautiful and evocative and told our story, our history, which is a difficult and hard and complex history of America.
How long did it take you to put it all together?
Oh, it took a little bit because I was working with Titi Jaji, who's an amazing poet. She curated the whole set. She wrote some of her own poems, but then we included two other poets, Crystal Simone Smith and Tahibi Jess, who's a Pulitzer Prize winning poet. And so once the narrative was there, I can't even think about music until the poem is in me. Like I can't even think about anything. So once that was established, I really felt connected to the poem. And then I wrote the piece fairly quickly, not because I'm a fast composer, but because I had spent so much time just really reflecting on what the message in the text was. So I would say about 3 or 4 months.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty quick to
Yeah.
have it. Now, when you're doing the production of the album, how involved are you as the composer in the actual production as a producer, let's say, or working with the
Yeah.
engineers and the final product and going through that revision cycle that we all go through
Well,
to
that's a
get to the
different,
final
yeah,
project?
yeah. Thank you. That's a good question. That's a very different thing. Now, because we had all these rock stars on this album, the biggest challenge was to get them all in one place.
Mm.
Right?
Yep.
And so fortunately, at my school here, Wheaton College Conservatory of Music, we had a concert and artist series where we had all of them here, except Howard Watkins. He couldn't make it. So we have another pianist, Paul Sanchez, who I've worked with many times on my other albums. And so once we had them in one space in Chicago for a couple days, I said, you all, we need to record this. We need to get in the studio and record this. Okay. I don't care when I'll get to it, but we just need to have y'all record it,
Yeah,
and so we got them here. We spent about 3 or 4 days. Some people came earlier, some people came a little bit later,
sure.
depending on their schedules, and we got the tracks down. And then I spent that I think that was around maybe February. I think it's around February that happened. And then I spent, the summer with my engineer Brian Porrick going through it. Now I call myself a producer now because this is my third album. I'm starting my fourth album. I realize I love producing albums,
Hmm.
and I am really particular and kind of OCD about about
That's what
this,
it
and I'm
takes, my
very
friend.
thorough.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm very thorough. It's something I didn't know I had in me. And it's not like I want a perfect album. It's more like, oh, this interpretation. Do I want this interpretation or this
right,
interpretation?
right.
Because I'm working with the best musicians in the world. They're fine with the notes. It's just like, how can I tell the story in this medium? So no, I am in the room with the engineer. Well, first of all, I'm by myself with the score and just marking up takes and things like that. And then I'm in the room with the engineer, and we spend hours and hours, making it work.
Yeah. Okay. And then, are you the one then? Would you say on this project that has the final say as the composer about what comes
Yeah.
out, or is there a team that you work with? And
I have the final say, but again, like I said at the very beginning, I'm very collaborative. So I let everyone have I don't just record them and say, "Oh, here's your CD." No,
right.
I let people speak into it. Jim Ginsburg, who owns and runs, and the president of Sadie Records. I mean, he's in the room too, and I get feedback from the musicians.
Yeah.
But then I pretty much have the final say. But it's not. It's in a way that invites other people in.
Yeah.
I
I'm
don't want to
sure.
say this is my way or not.
Yeah.
That's not how you make good art.
I'm sure that collaboration is greatly appreciated by everybody who contributes too.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Are we going
Thank you.
to
Yeah.
have more opportunities for live performances from the album in 2026? How's that going to go?
Yeah, there are some talks of some performances both in the United States and abroad. I can't really
Mhm.
talk about that now,
Oh,
but you'll be the first to know.
okay.
I'll let you know.
All right.
No, but it's been performed many times. A piece this long doesn't necessarily get performed a lot. Typically gets a lot of performances, but I've been blessed, and this piece has been performed a number of times already.
Yeah.
By the core group, but also by other groups in schools and festivals and things like that. So I'm
Well,
I'm fortunate with all these
hopefully,
productions.
hopefully your Grammy nomination, and if you
Yeah.
win the Grammy, it'll get you some more recognition to be able to
Yeah.
bring this to a much wider audience than it would
Thank
otherwise.
you.
I think that's what else do you have planned for 2026?
Oh, a couple of concertos. I have a big oratorio I'm writing. My opera has several more performances in 2026. The big thing, and February 1st, I'll be at the Grammys. So hopefully,
Yep.
we'll see. And what's beautiful about that, I'm taking my wife and kids, so we get to all
Wonderful.
go experience something that's very unique for people to actually be at the Grammys.
Absolutely. When as a professor and you're teaching, do you have any advancement based upon the works that you do in terms of your professional career in the university setting beyond just the music industry, shall we say, or our colleagues, or whatever kind of setting we might want to say? How does it work within academia?
Yeah. So I've been in academia for a long time, and I'm at the highest rank.
Okay.
In fact, I have an
Well, you're
endowed
done
chair.
then. That's it. It's all.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I can stop
Okay.
working now.
All right.
I have an endowed chair, which I'm so grateful for because what that allows me to do is allows me to still teach something I love to do, but
Yeah.
also provide space and funding for opportunities like this. So someone asked me the other day, "How can you afford to like produce all these albums?" And I realized it's a privilege because I've upstairs, I have this state-of-the-art studio, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
I work with a music producer. I have three different spaces to record. I have my preference. And then funding from the school, but also my relationships with Sadie Records, who funds a lot of this.
Hmm.
And so I'm in a position where I'm able to, through my academic appointment and the community here in Chicago, I'm able to make these albums, and I do not take it for granted. So I realize how lucky and blessed I am for that.
You have a great setup going, Shawn.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
You
Yeah.
you definitely do. If you were going to give some advice to a young Shawn now, maybe yourself, if you could think back to either way, maybe think back to what you were thinking about when you were 6 or 7, and you could give yourself some advice. Or if there's a new 6 or 7-year-old Shawn out there who's getting into music, and maybe they have the opportunities that many do to have music lessons and all that in a more structured way, but oftentimes people don't. So like you benefit from the good graces of others. What kind of advice would you give?
Yeah, so I'm gonna answer it a couple ways. First of all, for an aspiring composer, obviously lessons, and that's all great, but do a lot of listening. Do not just listen to pieces written 100, 200, 300 years ago. That's great. Listen to pieces that are written 5, 10 years ago, and just immerse yourself. You may not even like the pieces, but just listen. Also, listen outside the classical genre. That's the advice I would give myself. I didn't start re-listening to music outside the classical genre. Well, that's not true. I listened to a lot of music outside of pop music, but I didn't necessarily see the value of that besides my own personal entertainment, you know?
Okay.
But for any composer or musician or any human being, okay, I have 2 pieces of advice. One, be kind. We live in a world that's full of unkindness, and develop and cultivate meaningful relationships and friendships. My collaborations, they started out as just, we're just trying to do this thing together. And then the musicians, we explode and do these things, and now they're singing at the Met and doing these things. But we didn't all start this way. I tell composers, don't write for Yo-Yo Ma. Write for the next Yo-Yo Ma. Now, if he asks you to write for him, write for him. But I'm like, but the next Yo-Yo Ma may be in your music history class right next to you.
Okay.
Grow together as artists, and it makes the process more fun. You learn from each other. So be kind and develop meaningful, friendships and relationships.
That's great advice. Shawn, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Well, fortunately, my name is very obscure and and easy. So if you Google Shawn Okpebholo, you'll find my website and my contact is there. But also follow me on Instagram. I'm very active there, and on Facebook. My Facebook limit is full, but follow me on Instagram and message me. I would love to hear from you. So I'm Shawn Okpebholo. You can easily find me on all the socials through my website or just through Google.
Shawn, it's been a great pleasure to talk with you, a great pleasure to listen to your work this morning. Again, Grammy nominated for Best Contemporary Classical Composition, Songs in Flight. We're going to listen to some more of it on the way out here. And if there's anything we can do at the Symphonina Foundation to be of any help to you, you just let us know.
Thank you. So great to be here. And I could talk to you all day. So thank you so much.